What is going on, all my ex-drinking buddies? Wanted to address the elephant in the room. If you saw the duration of this episode, you're probably thinking, Brennan, where's the rest of the episode? Full disclosure, we were recording this podcast right before a show. It went a little long, and we were unable to start recording again for another half of the episode. So we will have AJ Wilkerson back on, of course. He's a hilarious comedian. We're going to get him back on to record another episode. But in the meantime, this one was chock full of fun stories, enlightening tales about AJ dealing with his autism and pursuing comedy, living in a van. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Enjoy the episode. Don't forget to subscribe on patreon.com/BrennanTassif. I love you all very much. Thank you so much for listening, and enjoy.
Grab me a beer and grab him a coke. We bout to sit for an hour, bullshit and tell jokes. And please don't mix it up, cause he done sobered up. Brennan T Comedy on your social media feeds. And Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy. Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy. Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy. Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy. I am your host, Brennan Tassif. If you're new to the show, I'll give you a quick rundown of the show. I'm sober now, but one of my favorite things to do back in the day was to hang out with friends, talk shit, talk shop, go over old drinking stories, drug stories, getting in trouble stories. And even though I'm sober now, that's still one of my favorite things today. I am honored to be joined by my guest today, very funny comedian, winner of the Portland Comedy Festival, now nationally touring with Jason Mewes, Mr. AJ Wilkerson. What's up, man?
Yeah, man. What's up, buddy?
Not much. How you doing?
I'm good. Tired and sore because my van is not the most comfortable to sleep in.
Yeah.
But it's getting there. It's fun.
So you are, let the audience know, you are doing the out of a van comedy thing.
Yeah, I converted a van during quarantine. So the very beginning of COVID, I was booked on a tour out of Tallahassee, and they put us up in a house there. But then COVID started, the tour got canceled, and they're like, well, when the lease is up in like 3 months, and then you guys got to go.
Yeah.
So instead of like getting another apartment, I was like, I'm just going to do a van and go to all of like the open cities everywhere that comedy was still going. I just went.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, man.
So how did you end up with the Portland thing? Did you drive up there, or how did that work?
No, I had submitted before COVID for the Portland Comedy Festival, and then COVID happened. It was postponed, and then they decided to do it virtually, so they just sent me a notification and had me submit a video, and then they had a bunch of industry people like vote.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So full disclosure to everybody, we are all about to do a gig, Morgan, AJ, and I, so we are recording outside at the venue, having a good old time. So if you hear background noises, say hello, Morgan.
What's up, people?
If you hear any background noises, that's what all that is.
Yeah,
so,
it's just Morgan.
sitting awkwardly next to us. So how did, because I first met you in Gainesville when I did a show out there with you and Bob Smith, did a Keg of Laughs show out there. And how did that whole thing happen with Jason? I'm sure you've told that story a million times, but
yeah, no, I love it. It's one of my favorites. So during COVID, I started going to all of like the open cities and going and just doing all the comedy I could.
Yeah.
And in my first road trip out, I went to Kansas City and I met the owner of the Kansas City Comedy Club.
Okay.
And then like a month after I got home, they posted about a contest to open for Jason Mewes. So I messaged him. I was like, hey, I'll come do the contest. And he's like, aren't you in Florida?
Yeah,
like,
but
he's like, I was like, yeah, but I'll come do it. He's like, dude, if you want
I
to drive
got the van, man.
Yeah, he's like, if you want to drive 1,400 miles for a contest, like, be my guest. So I did, and then I won.
Damn.
And, yeah, man.
That's awesome. So now that tour, you've already been on the road with him, correct?
Yeah, so I won the contest, went back to Kansas City like 3 weeks later to actually do the shows with him. One show with him, but that one opening spot went so well. He was like, dude, I'm bringing you on the road with me.
Yeah, because that's, for everyone listening who doesn't understand, that's how that works, is if you win a contest, it's for one show or one weekend or something.
Yep.
But you were able to parlay that into this whole tour.
Yeah, so it was a 10-minute opening spot, and it was just going so well. Like 4 minutes into my set, his road manager like ran back into the green room, and was like, "Yo, you got to come out here."
Oh wow.
Yeah, so
That's gotta
Jay
be the
like
best feeling in
stuck
the
his
world.
head out of the green room, which is right next to the stage. So I'm like about to tell a joke about handicapped people, and then I just see Jason fucking Mewes' face, fucking like surrounded by a halo of light from like the door opening from the green room.
Yeah.
And I was just like, "Oh, we made it." You know?
This is it.
Yeah, this is it. This is my moment.
That's awesome. So how many cities have you done so far?
So far, we did. He asked me to stay the rest of that weekend in Kansas City, so
Yeah.
I stayed and finished out Kansas City. Then we did 7 days in Florida, or 7 shows in Florida, and then we
Okay.
did 5 shows in Jersey. And the end of this month, we go to Portland.
I saw you posting about the Jersey when you were in Jersey and New York City and stuff.
Yeah.
How was that?
That was so much fun. So my closer is like a 8-minute bit about how Florida's designed to kill you.
Okay.
But I was really nervous, like, taking that to New Jersey. I was like, they don't give a shit about
Yeah.
Florida up there. But apparently everyone hates Florida equally, so it worked, you know?
Damn.
I was really happy about it.
That's awesome, man. So have you been getting into any shenanigans on the road with Jason, or just kind of playing it
No,
cool?
that dude just works.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, 'cause I know,
he's
yeah.
older. He's also sober now.
Yeah.
He's been sober like a decade.
Yeah.
So, and he, like, Twitch streams, like, 12 hours a day.
Does he really?
Yeah. So when we
Jesus.
do shows, like, we have 2 shows a night, Friday and Saturday most nights. So he will Twitch stream from like 10 a.m. to like 6 p.m. Come straight over to get ready for the shows, and then we're there from like 6 until
What is
midnight.
he doing on Twitch?
Just plays a lot of games.
Okay.
Like he does like Fortnite and Call of Duty
Damn.
and all of those
So he's
other
probably
things. And
good at that shit.
yeah, he's pretty decent. Yeah.
I could never get good at that. Yeah, I remember listening to like Babylon and like different Kevin Smith podcasts. And then him and Jason have their podcast. So I remember listening to that.
Jay and Silent Bob Get Old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember listening to that back when I was in college, like a long time ago, and they were talking about him getting sober and how like it took him a while to get there, but once he got there, like now all he does is just work constantly.
That like his one vice is like the yellow Red Bulls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not the blue, not the yellow.
The yellow.
Okay.
Yep.
So how long have you been at it as far as comedy? Did you started in Florida?
I started in Florida. I started pretty much with Bob Smith.
Okay.
Like, because he used to have a weekly show in Gainesville. Well, he used to have 2. He had a Thursday at the World of Beer in Jonesville, and then a Friday at World of Beer in Gainesville.
Okay.
And then every Sunday he would do a free workshop.
Yeah.
So like the same workshop you would get like from the Improv or like, you know, any other comedy workshop. He was just teaching it for free every week instead of like 8 weeks at a time.
Yeah.
So I just did that for like my first 14 months of comedy. Every week I was at workshop.
Oh wow.
You know?
So were you living in Gainesville? Were you going to school?
Yeah.
Because I know it's a college town, so most everyone's
my
in...
family's from just outside of Gainesville.
Okay.
So that's just the closest metropolis.
And to call Gainesville a metropolis.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But I'm also from the town I graduated high school
we got
from.
movement out here. We got movement.
Yeah, I thought there was like a WWE thing going on. Like I was making sure we weren't gonna get hit with the chair. Yeah, I graduated from like a town where there was like one caution light, like it wasn't even a stoplight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, so small
Like we had
town.
a gas station, post office, and bait shop
all
in
in
one.
the
Yeah.
God. So it's got to
My
be
graduating class was 3 people. Dude.
No.
Yeah, I graduated from Creekside Christian School in Otter Creek, Florida.
God.
Yeah.
So
The
this is-
shittiest part of that, I wasn't even valedictorian.
Really?
Like 3 people, they're like, you're in the middle. I'm like, all right.
Well, at least you could say like I was number 2 in my class. Nobody's got to know.
Yeah, exactly.
Is it weird for you traveling to these bigger cities now?
New York was really
It's
made
a
me
lot of
really
stimuli.
anxious.
Yeah.
Because it's, biggest city in the country, like this capital of all of this kind of stuff. But going like during all of the COVID stuff actually kind of made it easier because like the subways weren't packed. The
Yeah.
train from New Jersey into the city, wasn't packed. Like I had room to breathe walking around.
Yeah.
So it'll lessen the impact the next time I go back when it is full.
Okay. Yeah, because you got to it's something you definitely have to get used to.
Oh,
Now,
yeah.
I know you talk about it on stage and everything. You were diagnosed autistic,
Yes.
and that was later in life?
Yeah, I got diagnosed at 30, and then a month later, so 2 weeks after that, I got my medical marijuana card, and then 2 more weeks after that, I started doing stand-up.
Okay. Now, do you find stand-up difficult? In that, because there's different levels when it comes to everything like that, and I just didn't know because, like I know a couple comedians that seem to be on the kind of spectrum. Just with their mannerisms. The
difficult part is actually like the first couple moments after getting on stage.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Because like
because you crush. Like I've seen you do a lot of shows and you kill. So I didn't know if like
no, there's like that buildup of just getting in front of people because. Like Genesis makes fun of me for this all the time because I get like shaky on stage, but I'm not as shaky off stage. But off stage, like I have other ways I can like stimulate like I'm bouncing my legs or like rocking back and forth. Like it's harder to rock standing up, so it just comes out as more of like, you know, shaking.
Yeah.
But I'm shaking more there because I'm in the spotlight and like everything else about my personality is like, how do I camouflage myself so nobody notices me?
That's so awesome that you were able to still push through all that and do stand up.
Well, so it was medical marijuana.
Oh, was it?
Because I'd never done stand-up before, and then after I was already in the process of getting my medical marijuana card when I got diagnosed, and then after I got the medical marijuana card, finally I was like, hey, I think there's just enough fuck around and find out in this to see if I can do it.
There you
know
go.
What I mean? But I had always loved stand-up like my whole life. Like, when I was 14, I started working summers with my dad.
Yeah.
You know, doing like construction work and stuff like that. So every day over the summer, like driving to and from work, it was like comedy tapes, like with Jeff Foxworthy and Ron White and Larry the Cable Guy and Jerry Clower, super old school. And so that's like that was where I fell in love with comedy. But I was always just a fan because I always had that thing in my brain. It's like you're not going to be able to do that.
Yeah, you can't
do
that. Yeah.
And then eventually I was like, why can't you do that? You know
That's
what
awesome.
I mean?
Just enough fuck around in this.
Yeah.
That's a great line. That's going to be the title of the episode.
Just enough fuck around and find out.
So what, so we talked about like kind of how you got into it and everything, but what kind of propels you to like, cause this is the thing that always fascinates me. So like Morgan, who we've had on the show before, she's been doing comedy 8 months. She's
awesome.
Already booking all these shows and doing all this stuff. Me and Marcus have kind of more that long game, kind of grinded out, like doing shows. And you almost like, because we've done shows together years ago. So you've been doing comedy, but like then once it took off, it kind of just like blew up. Now, was that like, do you see it that way, or for you, or you no, I've been here the whole time? Like,
No. It definitely happened pretty quickly. Like, I would say I'd been doing comedy like 14 months before I started getting like decent to good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I was funny before, but I didn't have like, I wasn't consistently funny.
Okay.
Like it was like I'd have something really funny and then the next thing would just be like, eh. And I wasn't sure how to like correct that yet. So I hadn't figured out how to like start editing and really like making like jokes that I had written before better.
Yeah.
And then once I kind of started doing that, I was like, oh, wait. So now like I have all of this material that I didn't think was good, but now I know how to make it better.
Yeah.
And so once I started figuring that out, I was like, oh, we're off to the races. And then once like you said, like once it kind of happened, it happened fast.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's
like
always...
I lucked into like it's almost like I fell into like 3 or 4 really good situations and they just all worked out.
Yeah. Well, because that's what a lot of people that I've had on the show say. It's not about one big break. It's about a lot of smaller breaks.
Right.
And over time, those build and then
it was like that. I call like to me it's luck, but that's all. I have like a lot of imposter syndrome, you know, because I'm like, you know, that I shouldn't be doing this, you know,
what's
kind of
happening,
thing.
yeah.
It's like I'm only doing this because this is a choice I made, not, you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like that where like luck, our success is like where luck meets preparation kind of thing. Like I fell into like 2 or 3 things like right in a row, but I had been I write. Especially when I first started, I wrote religiously.
Like every day?
Like,
yeah.
Well, yeah, because every week I knew there was a workshop. So it's like, I have to have something new for workshop on Sunday.
Absolutely.
You know? And and so all of that writing and then that development of being able to write better and then fix old writing.
Yeah, that's something I've always had a problem with is you think of a joke, you try it a couple times, and if it doesn't work, I'm just kind of like, I guess that story's not going to play. And it took me a long time, like you're saying, to be like, oh, wait, you can fix that.
Yeah.
Like
and I even, like, the first time I took 2 old jokes and I was like, wait, what if I cut this out of one joke and just
then put them together?
together?
Yeah.
And then the first time that works, you're like, am I a genius? Yeah.
That was one of my biggest things because I had all these stories about getting arrested.
You feel like you just discovered quantum physics or something, and you're like, this is all it fucking took?
I had so many jokes and stories about getting arrested, but they were so long-winded, and, like, they fed into each other kind of, but it was like the same exact thing you're talking about. I was like, wait a second. What if I just cut it all out and made it one joke with, like, 3 situations? And then it worked, and I was like, that's it. I'm a genius. I'm a genius. It's the best when you finally figure that one part out, and you're like, wait a second.
Yeah, you feel like you imagine it's like a similar thing like Thomas Edison had. Like,
yeah.
he's like, I'll just build my
yeah.
own electricity. He figures, he's like, yeah, fuck you, Tesla. Like, I didn't need
this
you.
Whole thing. Yeah. You were telling us before we started recording that you had a very interesting experience a few days ago.
Yeah.
Because we were talking about if you had any kind of crazy stories, which we can get into later, but you were like, actually, something happened to me a couple days ago. Do you want to go ahead and let everybody know what happened?
Yeah. So you messaged me and you're like, hey, try and think of like 3 or 4 good like drinking or like drug or fight stories and stuff like that. And I was always like, I was pretty straight-laced growing up. Like I drank like, once I like joined the army, so like 20 on, you know. But I never really did drugs until after I got my medical marijuana card, and then I started smoking marijuana. And then I started researching like psychedelics and like their effects with autism and stuff like that. And so there's a ton of research that like LSD can be very good for people on the autism spectrum.
Okay.
So I tried it for the first time like last year.
All right.
But it was like that first, like, I'm gonna try it. And it was like a good trip, like enjoyable experience. I went like to the Midnight in Gainesville.
Okay, yeah.
Comedy, and like 3 comics like kept an eye on me, made sure I was safe, and
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it was really enjoyable. But this time, I finally got my hands on some more, and I was like, okay, this time is for like we're going inside.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I did like a friend sent me like some guided meditation stuff and some things like that, and I was like, basically because that's what I had read. Like this guy who's autistic wrote a book about like his experience with like experimenting with LSD. He basically just experimented on himself,
just
like,
with a bunch of
And so basically, there's this idea that basically. Psychedelics give you the opportunity to kind of like talk to yourself a little bit, and with autistic people there's like you can rewrite the code a little bit, or you can, and that's kind
move stuff around,
move stuff around. And so that's kind of what my goal was like, I need to move some stuff around because we talked about this a little bit before the podcast. Like when I think of new material, like I think out loud.
Yeah.
So like if I think of a new bit in my head, like I'll say it out loud and I'll record it. Right, and then I'll go back and listen to it, and then I'll eventually write it out into like the final version of the joke.
long form, yeah.
Right. But I've got to get better about speaking out loud to myself because for so much of my life it was like, don't talk out loud. People are gonna think you're a weirdo. And now it's like, no, you got to talk to yourself, or this is never gonna work.
Yeah.
So it's
That's
like
so
it's like trying to break those bad like masking habits from childhood, and it's like, no, now you need to use that ability to your advantage.
Isn't that so weird? As you get older, those things change in your life.
Yeah,
it's bananas.
Because that was the thing. Like as a kid, like that with my experience with autism has been like my whole life. Like I just have so many things going through my brain at one time that it's hard to like focus on one single thing. So I'm constantly, and so for a long time I just thought it was like ADD, but there's some sensory processing things on top of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like a multitude of things. But I'd have that like in my head, and then I'd just blurt something out loud because it popped in my head, and I was like, ooh, let me grab it before I,
forget it.
Yeah, before it just flies by and I miss it, and I'd say it out loud, and people were like, "What the fuck is going on
doing?
with him?" Yeah. So I just stopped doing that, and so now I'm trying to break that habit again, and I need that skill back again.
Yeah, and it's weird because I found the same thing to a lesser extent when it came to drinking, like alcoholism and stuff. Because when I was younger and like getting in trouble, it's like, oh, you just don't talk about this. Like you just don't say anything.
Right.
Nobody needs to know. And then as I got older, especially into comedy, I was like, oh no, this is what you talk about. This is what you need to talk about.
Yeah.
Like all that
embarrassing stuff that you're like, I don't want anyone in my personal life to know this. You're like, no, now I need everyone to know this.
Everyone has to be aware of the situation. God, so what ended up happening? Did you rewrite some code?
I rewrote some code. I was up early this morning, went to the gym, all that kind of stuff. Like, the best way I can explain, like, the experience itself is you have, like, a short period of time where the glass shatters and you get to have, like, a conversation with, like, the inner you.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's awesome.
And it was basically, like, that voice in your head that, like, when the alarm goes off and you're like, no, you have to get up for work. Like, you can't hit snooze anymore.
You talk to that voice.
I talked to that guy. I call him the warden. Yeah,
The
so
warden.
I talked to the warden. I was like, hey, we can't have the inmates running the asylum here,
Yeah,
all right? We need a little bit more structure.
Let's get it.
Yeah, like, I need the structure back. And he's like, all right, I'll give you all the fucking structure you can handle. And so now we've got the structure back.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, so it's like those first couple of days. This is basically day 2 after the trip. So, like, all of that, like, cognitive functioning is still, like settling in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I'm excited.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I understand that this sounds like complete cockamamie bullshit.
You should
but
hear some of the
it makes
stuff we
sense to
have.
me.
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
what I mean?
If
Like, I was there. I know what happened.
Do you you mentioned you were in the Army. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I wasn't great at it. I was basically like I was a radiology specialist. So I was an X-ray tech.
Okay.
You know.
Was it right out of high school or did you go to
I went to college for 1 semester, met my recruiter on college campus.
Okay.
And then, yeah. And it was like, why would you pay for a degree to be an X-ray tech when we'll pay you a salary to teach you to be an X-ray tech?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that sounds
makes
good.
sense.
Yeah. Sold, you know?
How long? When did this happen?
Like 3 years. I was National Guard.
Okay.
And then I had a back injury. I had to have surgery and stuff like that. And then again, nobody knew I was secretly autistic at the time. That caused mental health issues because now I couldn't like participate with everyone else, and I lost the structure of the Army. Mental health spiral, and this was 2008, 2009. The Army was in the middle of their PTSD crisis.
Yeah.
Like, oh, and mental health, get them the fuck out of here.
Oh,
yeah.
So they were just like, all right, see you later?
Basically.
Damn.
And they were like, it was even like I had a sit-down conversation with like a commander, and they're like, look, like, we don't want you to have to deal with the stigma of mental health. Like, it doesn't have mental health issues don't have to be in your record. We'll make it like a physical. And I was like, okay, whatever.
Oh, damn. And
yeah,
just
they
sent you on your way?
really did not want to deal with mental health shit at that point in time because they were getting so much bad press about how they handled mental health.
Yeah, because so many people were dying. Talk about don't ask, don't tell. We're just not going to put it in your file.
Yeah, we're just not going to put it in your file. Get out of here.
Get out of here, you knucklehead.
Yeah, you snuck one in on us, you rascal. Go home.
God, that's so terrible. So what? I don't even know where to go from there. So what did you do after?
I was basically like Forrest Gump if he was sad all the time.
What did you do after the Army?
I went home, like I went back into construction for a little bit. Then I eventually went in, like worked at Lowe's. I was like a department manager at Lowe's for a long time. Then I did sales, and I basically just did every job I could until I'd get burnt out from it.
Yeah, and then just move on to the next one.
And then eventually I used my military benefits, Chapter 31, like vocational rehab, to go back to school. I got my degree in graphic design.
Oh, shit.
And then...
Is that where you came up with is that how you were able to design the T-shirt?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I drew my own...
You do all your own merch, right?
Yeah.
Captain Autism.
Yeah, I have it drop shipped through like a company, so I don't have to touch, like I'm hands off on like any like orders through my merch store and stuff, but all the designs and stuff.
Where is all this at?
So I have an Etsy store, AJ Wilkerson Comedy, or you can search Captain Autism on Etsy. And I'm working on my website now, so I'm going to link everything.
Yeah, because we talked about
website.
that. Yeah. Okay. Did you already get the domain?
Not yet. I've got everything set up in a cart on GoDaddy, but I'm trying to decide between AJ Wilkerson or AJComedy.com or like CaptainAutism.com, because Captain Autism just sounds so cool.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm going to wait. This episode will come out in a couple weeks. I want to make sure you get the domain before you start.
It.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because this is a little mom and pop podcast, but we do have some listeners, and some people can be really shitty.
Oh yeah.
God, where did you come up with the Captain Autism thing? Because for those of you listening, just I wanted to just let them know. For everyone listening, it's basically like a comic book, and you're a superhero. But when you open up your shirt, instead of a Superman S, it's an A on a brain. Yeah. And it's literally, you have it issue number 1, 42 pages, like a comic book.
Yeah, and it took a while coming up with the design because there's like, even like in the like autistic community, like there's like division over like the puzzle piece logo and stuff, like because of like all of like there's a bunch of like really shitty symbolism behind it.
Yeah.
Like, the guy that, and like the Autism Speaks Foundation that basically thinks like autism is basically they want to find a cure for it because they don't think we should exist.
Oh wow.
So Autism Speaks sucks a bag of dicks.
Shots fired.
Yeah,
you heard it here. Autism Speaks.
So like a lot of autistic people are trying to like come up with different logos. So they've got like a rainbow infinity symbol that represents like neurodiversity and stuff like that. So I took like a similar idea and just did like the brain with all of the colors. And then I did the A over
That's
the top
badass,
of it.
man.
So yeah, so just my own little spin on like a neurodiversity logo.
Everybody go look for it. Etsy.com/Captain Autism.
Yep. AJ Wilkerson Comedy.
AJ Wilkerson Comedy.
Yep. And
we're gonna blow it up, man.
Yeah. It's cool. I'm doing good on the road. Like I take like posters of this, like of the comic book poster on the road as like my merch and stuff like that, and I do it like as donations. So like whatever anybody wants to donate.
That's a smart play.
I clean up pretty
people
well.
just start throwing 20s your way, and you're like, all right, here we go. Don't have to worry about change or anything like that.
Yeah, man.
You said you started drinking in the Army. Did you ever get crazy or wild or anything like that, or was it just?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when I was in San Antonio for my like training,
basic training and stuff. Yeah.
No. Basic training was in Fort Jackson, South Carolina.
Okay.
And then phase 1 of my AIT training, where I was learning to be an X-ray tech.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Was in San Antonio. So I got out there. And as soon as we like earned our privileges to like leave the base and stuff like that, like I found like it was like a 2003 Chevy Malibu with like 22,000 miles on it that had been garage kept by this older couple, and he had lost his license, so they
weren't
sold
even
me
using
the car
it,
for like $1,400.
Get out of here.
Yeah, it was like a 5-year-old car with less than like 25,000 miles on it for like
That's
$1,400.
awesome.
So then I became like the de facto, like, hey, we're all gonna go drinking, like
Everyone
we'll take
pile
his
in
car.
AJ's car. Yeah.
And then eventually one of the guys in our barracks was like, hey, we look similar, and I have an old ID. You know?
Yeah.
And then, from there we were off to the races.
Just.
Yeah. Then it was, I would drive us there, then we'd get like a cab back.
Yeah.
And then the next day somebody else would take me back to get my
To
car.
your car?
Yeah.
God. Well, at least you weren't drinking and driving. That's smart.
Yeah, well, because, I mean, in the Army, that's like a federal crime.
Yeah. Well,
you know?
we had we've had Dallas Nelson on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
He was in the Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
Same kind of thing. He was just like talking about how they used to get fucked up, but it was so like you could not get caught or else you were going to be in big trouble.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, same thing. Like, if I had ever gotten caught, like, by the Army, like, drunk, I could have been, like, kicked out of the military. I could have been in prison.
Well, because you were underage.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. God.
And because in the Army, you're, like, government property. So it would have been, like, you know, not only drinking underage, but also, like, damage of government property.
Damn. That's crazy.
Like, you have to get like a waiver signed from your command structure in the Army to go get like a tattoo.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Like, even if you already have tattoos, like to get a new one,
to get another
one,
one,
like a waiver signed.
All right, it's almost 6:40 now. People are starting to gather around us.
Yeah.
So we're gonna pause this. We'll come back to it later.
Sounds good.
All right, through the magic of editing, no one's gonna know what happened.